Live and direct, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Leadership Series here on the Los Angeles Tribune Television Network. Of course, this is Monday night live broadcasting all over the world. And I'm excited today, Dr. Natalie Forrest, because we have a real eclectic group of leaders coming together to talk about leadership. And specifically, what we're going to delve into is a question that I know a lot of leaders deal with. And that's, of course, this distinction between delegation and micromanagement. And so I'm going to ask this group of folks to spend the next 40 minutes or so. We're going to have a fireside chat. Everyone has a different background, but everyone has one thing in common. They want to make this world a better place, and they're all great leaders. And so I'm going to bring them up right now in a couple minutes. But before I do that, Natalie, I want to just ask you, how excited are you for this week's episode?
Well, I wouldn't say excited. I'm in anticipation. I'm in anticipation to hear what everybody has to say because, like you said, it's a very diverse group. And you and I, we both have to manage or lead a lot of things ourselves, such as an upcoming event in June. So if I were to micromanage everything, I'd probably go crazy. And I think it has a lot to do with trust, but I can't wait to hear what our four guests have to share.
Absolutely.
And maybe I'll learn something.
Before we bring them on, Dr. Forrest, please talk about this event, which is, of course, by women, for women, presented by the Los Angeles Tribune. Please talk a little bit about it.
Well, I think you just put the flyer up. So what this is really, it's a focus on women, not to exclude men, but you know how it is. Sometimes guys like to talk amongst themselves, so do women. So we want to have real conversations about stuff that happens in life, in business, at the job, as a family member, as a mompreneur. And you see the lineup here. We're adding a number of very special guests that we're going to just, here and there share. It's June 12th and 13th. Of course, it's free for the public to attend. It is live streaming. And after that, it'll be on Roku as well. If anybody wants to pre-register, please do so because there might just be freebies on the way. I'm extremely excited about this one because all of these women are coming together to just pour into you and to engage with everybody. So thanks for giving me that opportunity.
Absolutely. And we see, of course, David Fagan is in the virtual auditorium saying, great group. I know many of them well. Several have been clients or have spoken at my events. And one of the people that's going to be speaking at this event is, of course, Murray Diamond from The Secret. I'm going to use the law of attraction and see if we can get David Fagan to be one of our guests right now on this show. David, I'm going to manifest you from the virtual auditorium live with us. Let's see. Boom. There it worked.
Oh,
David,
man.
you just
amazing.
Arrived. There he is. Wow. We just used the power of the law of attraction to bring David Fagan from the virtual auditorium into the studio, as well as all these other wonderful folks. So let's get the ball rolling, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, we are going to really do a nitty-gritty deep dive into this conversation of leadership. And we're going to start off with this conversation specifically as far as whether or not, we should be leaders that delegate or whether or not we should be leaders that micromanage. The first thing I'm going to ask you guys to do is give a brief intro and then delve into answering this particular question. I'm going to start with Coach Les Hill with Less is More Coaching LLC. Get the ball rolling for us. Les, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mo, and great to be here. Nice to meet you, David, and great to see you again, Dr. Natalie. I am an integrity coach. And what I do is I actually look at your communication, where you're at. I look at your relationships, how you communicate inside your family, inside your business, and also holistically inside your faith and the marriage that goes on between all of them. And when we think about delegation and micromanage, the one point I want to kind of start the ball rolling with is, do you want to expand your business? If you want to expand your business, what you're going to be wanting to look at is getting out of the micromanagement, out of managing on the field in the business. And you want to look at working on the business, delegating and replacing yourself out in the marketplace. And that's what I want to start with, Mo. And with that, I'll hand it back.
I appreciate that. And up next, I want to have a gentleman who I have admired for many years take the floor. And of course, many people know him as the former CEO of Guerrilla Marketing, as well as tons of other things that he does in business. and for humanitarian endeavors. This gentleman is always giving back to the community. We respect him, we love him, we appreciate him. David Fagan, the floor is yours. Let's talk a little bit about this distinction between micromanagement and delegation. I would love to hear from you.
Absolutely. That's a lot of kind things he said to me, Mo. I'm
a nice guy. David, I'm a nice guy. I say nice things about people.
You do. You say some pretty nice things when we're on the air. When we're not,
yes.
I don't know about that. No, I mean, look, I love these loaded questions that you give to us. You load them up so good. There's all these angles. A lot of times the most common answer is like, well, it depends, right? It depends. I think, new people, when they're new to us, they need more structure. We really need to show them what we expect. We need to show them what the finished product looks like. I think that we're all self-starters. And so sometimes we assume that when we bring on these people that are a little bit more employee-minded than entrepreneur-minded, they're going to be a self-starter like us. We feel like, oh, I live, breathe, eat, and sleep my business. Surely they do too. And that's just not the case, So a lot of times I do think that there is a time and a place to kind of micromanage it. And one rule of thumb I would use is this. It's the 10-80-10 rule. And that is the first 10% of any project or any type of delegation, there should be a lot of micromanagement to really give a good and fair expectation of what we want the outcome to be. And then the next 80%, if possible, for you to really step away and step out and let them go to work and do the job you've hired them to do. But then come back in for that last 10%, see where things are at, and help them drive it across the finish line in a way that is what you expect and what you want. Not so that you're going to take the credit for it. Okay, this isn't like get back in on the project or the task or whatever so you can take credit for it, but just so that you can make sure it's what you want. But delegation is a tricky thing. It's a very often misunderstood thing. There are things that are more like daily tasks and to-dos, and then there are other things that are big projects with lots of moving parts that are going to take weeks and months. So it depends, depending on the situation. I mean, both of those can work quite well.
I love that. Some of the folks behind the scenes that manage our social media are, regurgitating some of the quotes that we're saying live on the air. And of course, David Fagan talks about the 10-80-10 approach. And this is why, David, I'm looking forward to a project that you told me a few months ago is in the works. I don't know, what the progress is, but I asked you on the air a few months ago, what are you doing in the personal development space? And you had this brilliant concept. And before we go to Ajit, I want you to follow up on this because I am first in line to buy this book, and that is The Perfect Day. I want to know more about this perfect day, David, because when you said that to me, I remember I'm like, this is brilliant. Because what if we just live our lives and all we do is just craft perfect days? A lot of times we get stuck in business. We want to craft the perfect quarter. We want our P&L sheets to look good, or we want to have. I know Lisa is in the nonprofit work. You guys want to craft the perfect event or have the perfect month. What if we as individuals and as leaders do what David suggests? Just craft the perfect day. And have that have a compound effect happening over the course of our lives that change our life. David, can you talk a little bit about The Perfect Day and what the progress is with that project?
So we just finished a book here in the last month that actually we featured you in, or at least I spent some time talking about you in, called Becoming Significant. And so we just finished that. So that is the next project, is The Perfect Day. And as you said, my discovery over the last year is just kind of waking up into these moments where, wow, today was a really great day, and starting to realize that, well, what made it such a good day? Should I be accidentally waiting to just kind of notice that I had a good day? Or if I knew what the ingredients were that made the perfect day for me, couldn't I purposefully load that into and take action on those things? So that's the very short thing. Short roundabout answer to it all. So yes, that is our next project. That is our next course. It's something fun. It's something I'm passionate about. It's something that I've used in my own personal life where, sometimes we get real hung up on the 3-year goal, the 5-year goal, the 10-year goal. I'm more of a power play person. What can we do in the next 4 to 6 weeks to make money or get results? What can we do to make today a great day? You know, you start thinking about in these short-term power plays and perfect days. You create the perfect day, you create the perfect power play, everything else just takes care of itself.
And once you buy David's book and do the course, the Perfect Day course, a great follow-up is something that I am also producing right now. This is a 100% original idea, the Perfect Night. So after you learn how to have the perfect day with David,
I was waiting for it.
I'm going to teach you.
Noah's been so serious for so long. No way he can go very much further.
I'm going to teach you guys how to have the perfect night.
I'm like, I know he's got something with this. He's been working on something.
Right. And with that, let's go now to Mr. Ajit Harris. Mr. Ajit, please, the floor is yours. Tell us a little bit about the great work that you're doing in the world. You are definitely a leader, but share with our audience some of the things that you're up to and talk about this distinction between delegation and micromanagement. Floor is yours.
Sure. Thank you, Mo. Well, so for about the last 12 years, I was independent. I was working in merchant services, financial services. Earlier this year, I got an opportunity to work with Amelia Antonetti, who's the CEO at Genius Key. And she's doing some great work in the world as far as human behavior. And what I learned, my background is I was very independent. I never worked well with teams, and then you come into this company environment where there's like 30 people to work with. And what I've learned about delegation, and kind of like what David said, is that that 10-80-10 approach. And that's kind of how Amelia is. Like, she'll come in, she'll say, hey, this is the project I want done. Carry it as far as you can, and then come back in and check with me. And I think the benefit of that is the CEO or the leaders, you don't have to micromanage, and it allows you to scale, right? That way the CEOs were able to work on top level projects. People are able to execute, and by checking in, they're able to stay on course in company and brand alignment. You don't have 20 people running around, in different directions, because I have seen in companies where they delegate and people, like, sometimes they don't know what to do with that power. I think it's important to have strong, aligned people under you who you can delegate and trust projects to.
Great point. And up next, of course, we have Lisa, who is with one of the most incredible organizations of Southern California. We at the Los Angeles Tribune are proud to call them a strategic partner. Before we delve into this conversation, Lisa, talk a little bit about the organization, because we're honored to be official partners with you guys. And I want you to talk a little bit about the amazing work that you're doing for the community and have been doing since the 1980s. Please, the floor is yours, Lisa.
Well, thank you, Mo, very much. We really appreciate this opportunity to share about Food Finders. My name is Lisa Hoffmaster, and I'm the Fund Development Director for Food Finders. I've been with the organization for 13 years, but Food Finders has been around for 32 years. And we are a food rescue, we're a food rescue nonprofit that connects businesses in the food industry and their food overages with nonprofit partners that have clients that have limited access to good, healthy food. And rather than that food going to waste, it's redirected to our agency partners so that they can feed people. This food arrives today and it's a meal tonight. And so to share what I do professionally, I'm a fund development professional. I've been working in the industry of nonprofit for over 25 years, raising funds, managing money, holding special events, leveraging resources, working with volunteers and in teams all the time. There's no way that you could accomplish anything that you do in the nonprofit world if it isn't for working with teams. And especially like at Food Finders, we have an army of some 300 community volunteers. Last year, we rescued over 17 million pounds of food, and that can't be done by just one or two people. That's done by a collective of like-minded people who see the value of not letting good, wholesome food go to waste and end up in a landfill, creating methane gas to kill us all. Rather, it goes to feed people who just don't have money for food, maybe towards the end of the month, or maybe in general. We serve a wide gambit of nonprofits. So it's truly using the value of volunteers and their passion for what we do to be able to accomplish something so vast. I mean, we started in somebody's house, rescuing like a few 100,000 pounds of food with maybe 3 or 4 volunteers. And now we've grown to this large organization, but still we only have 14 employees, and 11 of them are in the office. So we work in small teams within each department, whether it's the food or the agency coordination or fund development. We are a small but mighty community of people who want to live a life of service and have a mission to eliminate hunger by reducing food waste.
Well, you are truly a mighty organization, and it's one of the pleasures and privileges of the Los Angeles Tribune to be official partners with you guys strategically and help get this organization the resources that it needs through awareness and through community understanding of the fact that such an organization exists. Because many people in Southern California, even though you guys have been around for 3+ decades, don't know about this organization. And also they don't know about the amount of waste that not only Southern California produces, but this country produces. In fact, if you take all of the waste that this world produces, you could feed every man, woman, and child 10 times over. And so I think that it's our duty as leaders to bring awareness to the amount of wasted food that happens on this planet. Because if there's a child starving tonight somewhere in the world, and simultaneously there are millions of pounds of food being wasted annually, something's not right there. And it may not be our fault, Lisa, but it is our responsibility as leaders. And I'm speaking right now collectively here because we have to do something about it, and we are doing something about it. We're not just talking, we're walking the walk. And with that, I want to bring the conversation back to leadership. And I think that it's apropos to now talk a little bit about the concept of a heart-centered leader and service-based leadership. And I want to give the floor to Coach Les, because I know you're qualified to talk about this as an integrity coach. One of the strongest ways to build a character is by practicing integrity and also being a heart-centered, service-based leader, which I know you are. So Coach Les, please take the floor for the next couple minutes and speak on what it means to be a heart-centered leader.
Well, for me, the biggest eye-opening, I was in corporate America for 23 years, been in many restaurants, spent my time doing that, worked for a personal training and development company for 12 years, and learned in that personal training and development company what it was to actually get over there in the conversation, being in another person's world. And I'll never forget one of the exercises where it suddenly had me be responsible for what was over there was when we did this exercise where we stood toe to toe with another individual and looked in their eyes, and we couldn't talk for 5 minutes. And what occurred, if you can think about that, was, and I can still remember the gentleman's name, the first guy, and this was in 2002, December 11th. And his name was David. And I remember standing, looking in his eyes, and he had a beard, and I cried. I laughed. We laughed. He cried. And what I found was that there was somebody over there with a heart, and what it would be to serve that heart. Not serve him, hand him money, hand him anything, but to serve him, to be there as another person, to listen, to be, to experience and see what his pathway was that he had traveled as a human being. And later on, we talked for hours after the event and found that we possessed a similar innate caring for other people, so great, almost to a fault, to sacrifice our own life in observance of another. Having spent some time in the military, I gave my life to the country. When you go into the military, they own you, right? You sign your life over to them. When I went on a missions trip recently, for me to go and see what it is to be of service and to get to know and be over there and to be somebody that as a leader represents that softness and yet firm, the distinction between power and force. and learning how to have power by creating the power over there with another, such that they became the author and the generator of it. Even though if you went back, you would see that the idea originated over here. But to plant that seed, you know, like a mustard seed, which is the tiniest seed, which then cracks open and makes available this really great space, this discerning heart, this discerning wisdom over there, and watching them blossom on a missions trip. For me then to bring that back and be that person as a coach with my clients and start to see how that opens up over there and the difference that makes, that was profound. And that's what I have to share. Thanks, Mo.
Wow, that's extremely powerful, especially because Mo and I, we've also been doing some hands-on work, and David, of course, as well. I know that for a fact. So we've all been doing some service work hands-on, and it is very different when you're there, that missionary aspect. Now, when you were standing, this is just a trick question, sort of, right? When you're standing there, because I've been in situations, you're standing there, you're not supposed to say anything, right? In your mind, are you trying to micromanage the situation? Are you trying to figure out what to do? I mean, because you're standing there, for a lot of people, that's really uncomfortable because we're using so many words for no good reason. So what was going through your head when you're looking at that person? You're not supposed to talk.
Well, really, for me at this point in my life when I did that, and it was in, as I said, in 2002 in December, was to, you know, I've done martial arts. I've done a lot of training and development. I've walked on fire. I've done a lot of these self things. What I took from the instructions of that exercise was to get over there in their world. And so there was a lot for me of how do I do that, right? So it's to get rid of my conversation. And as the thoughts come up, you know, are we going to, are our stomachs going to touch if we breathe at the same time because we're so close? I mean, all of these weird, you know, these crazy thoughts, and, you know, and then when we started to laugh, it's like, are we going to get in trouble because we're laughing? You know, so the brain, you know, and one of the statistics I've read thinks at 1,800 words a second. So if you think about that, I mean, that's, you know, 7 pages of information a second. And you start to be thinking about what's going on. What is this person thinking? What are you thinking? And then changing my thoughts and then looking into their eye, going from, because, you know, it's hard to focus on 2 eyes. So you look from one eye over to the next eye. And then, okay, is this getting weird? Okay, maybe I'll look at his nose. And then, okay, maybe I should look at his mouth. No, that's weird. Okay, back up to the eyes. And so there's so much internal dialogue that is going on. And 5 minutes, I don't know if any of you have ever held your breath for a minute, but 5 minutes is a long time. And as you can probably tell by me, I'm a little bit of a talker. I communicate that way. And to suddenly have that piece taken away and then be responsible for 85 to 95% of our communication is nonverbal. And what are we communicating? That's when it started to get interesting.
Awesome, thank you. And I want to go from here. I'm not sure. Everybody looks like they want to say something, but I want to switch it from here because you said this one word. You know, maybe you said it, maybe I heard it. It's control. And to me, delegation, leadership, micromanaging has a lot to do with control. Can we give it up? Can we not give it up? With trust and all of those things. So I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in, because I know that there's a little bit of a difference when you have volunteers like Lisa does, or when you have employees, which is partially what David mentioned, and Ajit, or whether you just have, you know, a bunch of entrepreneurs doing something. You know, they're all self-starters. So what are your thoughts on the control idea but control and trust in this conversation about micromanaging and delegation? Anybody go? Nobody? David,
Well,
go ahead.
I'll jump in.
Okay. Let's go. Yeah. And then David.
The game that I've been working on the past few years is how to have control by inviting them to have control by the questions that I ask.
Okay.
And starting to develop a set of questions which inherently has them do thinking and then ask a question, which is where I want them to go.
Okay.
And it's really tough. And I've been put on the spot a couple of times to, okay, give me an example. And it's like, it's tough to do that in the moment. What I share though, is if we're looking to fire somebody, quote unquote, how can we have a conversation where they, in essence, say, you know, this job really isn't suited for me, in other words?
Okay.
I know. Because
that sounds like a curveball to me, but that's just me.
well, it is, right? I figured it would be kind of one of those things. It's like, wow,
Right.
because here we are delegating and micromanaging. And as a coach, a lot of times I'm brought in to do some of the dirty work and some of the good work. I help out in hiring as well. But to have that person realize and sit down, they're looking to get their papers. And I end up building them up so that they're excited to walk out and find the job that's more appropriate for them.
Wow.
Yeah. I would first, tip my hat to Lisa just to say that leading volunteers is the hardest thing to do. The thing that made me a better leader was having opportunities to lead volunteers. And what makes leading volunteers so difficult, if just in case we maybe don't all realize this or thinking about this, is there's no incentive to pay them more. You're not going to bonus them. You can't fire them. It's like, hey, you're fired. I'm just out here volunteering, right? So when you are leading volunteers, you have to come from less of a place about yourself and more of a place about them. What do you want to get out of this? Why are you here? And what's funny is that volunteer approach is probably actually most of the time the way that we should be, even if someone isn't a volunteer. Imagine if we treated everyone and managed and led everyone as if they were volunteers. Hey, why are you here? You could work anywhere. You could do anything. What makes you tick? Why do you want to do this? Now, I am a little bit old school that at a certain point, the rubber has to meet the road and, the results have to be delivered and everything else. But so much can be learned from, leading volunteers. And to go to your word, Natalie, of control, I don't think control is a bad thing. I think some people have abused control. They have abused leadership. There is this abuse of a title, and we see this with teachers, police officers, husbands, wife. And there's this abuse of power all the time. The power isn't necessarily the bad thing. The control isn't necessarily the bad thing. I'd like to think that I have a vested interest in having control over the outcome, and that doesn't make me a bad individual. But there is a point in time where we do have to trust the process and trust the person. And I'll leave you this last thought. One of the things that I do so that I can have that trust with a person is there is a certain amount of hiring and interviewing and questions, but just as important as that is, I'm a big believer on letting people shadow you. Let them shadow you. Let them hear you talk on the phone. Let them see you solve problems, because really, to me, a lot of times, the best individual is the individual that's going to go, what would David do in this situation? What would David want for this event? Well, how would David want this book to look? And it doesn't mean that, I don't want their expertise or their own professional opinions. But in a case of a default, I want them to know, what would David do here, right? What would the leader do? My team, I want them to be an extension of me. How can they be an extension of you if they don't really know about you, or what makes you tick, or how you work, or what really the core values are, or what your best practices are? And so I think as leaders, we have to invest a certain amount of time letting people hang out with us, be around us. And that can be tough because, that meter's spinning, right? It's like being at the gas pump and you're just seeing those numbers turning over, right? Like you got someone on the clock and it's just numbers turning. And so that can be hard to do, but that upfront investment of time is huge, to make sure they really understand what the mission is and what your style is so that they can be an extension of you.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. And I think that, I don't know how many people have seen that image where it kind of has the difference between a boss and a leader. And, you see that the boss is being, held up by all of the people, and the leader is pushing everyone else forward. And I also believe, David, to your point, looking at people from a human standpoint. Because when you're dealing with volunteers, you have to do that. You're forced to do that. You can't say, "Hey, we need to talk about your performance." This last week. You have to treat them like human beings. And what if all leaders and bosses did that anyways? I think it's a brilliant message, and I hope people accept that and feel that. And with that, it's hard to believe we're already here in the last 15 minutes of the program. So I'm going to go and give everybody some time to give their closing statements and whatever you've had in your heart thus far that you'd like to express to our audience. You have more than enough time to share. Let's start with Lisa, and then we'll go to Ajit. Lisa, the floor is yours.
Hi. Yeah, I wanted to kind of piggyback on what David was saying about volunteers. They're an extension of us out in the world, and they're representing us. So part of the important part of being a leader is having clear communication with people so that they understand what your organization stands for, what your core values are, and to make sure that there's an alignment with their core values and what you believe in. And that's something that has really worked for Food Finders for 3 decades. We seem to always attract people who are very much in alignment with us on being of service to others, of reducing waste and wanting to do something to solve a problem rather than just stand on the sidelines and complain about whatever the issue is. These people live and breathe Food Finders, and they are the best advocates that we could ask for. So, occasionally maybe somebody goes rogue and might go to pick up some food, not on their day, but on somebody else's day. But, we are always able to communicate with our volunteers and to make sure that they understand how important they are. Like I said before, there's no way we could get 17 million pounds of food if it wasn't for our volunteers being involved in the smaller donations that are like a shopping cart of food, because we have large refrigerated trucks that are rescuing 10 and 12 pallets. So to be a leader that also exemplifies a life of service, they know that our staff are there for them if they have questions. They can feel good about what they're doing out in the world on our behalf. And we're really giving them a venue to live a life of service and to feel connected.
Awesome.
So I don't want to take up everybody's time. I could talk
awesome.
about
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you, and we thank you and honor you and everyone else at your organization for the work that you guys are doing. And we're honored to help in any way that we can. And with
thank
that,
you. We're honored to be a partner with you too. So
thank you for that, Lisa.
Well,
I appreciate that. Thank you. And with that, let's go to Ajit. Ajit, your closing thoughts. I know that brilliant, beautiful head of yours has had so many thoughts as you're listening to everyone else talk. I'm curious what's going on in there. Okay, can you please let us inside that beautiful head? Go ahead.
Absolutely. So first, thank you, Lisa. It was amazing and to hear about your work. And I grew up in India, and I saw a lot of hunger, and so to hear what you're doing is pretty awesome. So something that David said about titles kind of stuck with me that I would love to talk about. Again, growing up in India, like there you were known by your title, right? If you were a VP, you're a director, and I've seen that even here in corporate America. The company where I work now, we don't use titles. We say everyone is a genius. One of our clients, his brother's an actor, and he's a financial advisor. And he says, "Hey, my brother's an actor. He's a genius actor, but he can't sell a 401k. That's what I can do. In our company, there's people who can do branding, who can do finance, graphics, and so I would just encourage our the audience, anyone listening, whether you're a manager, whether you're a director, is just to find your genius and just grow from there. And if you're a leader and you have you're trying to delegate, invest time in your employees and find their genius and help them grow from that. So thank you, Mo.
Awesome. Let's go to Coach Les. Coach Les, I see you looking down. I needed to get your attention. I like it when people make eye contact with me. Oh, you're taking notes. Beautiful. Okay, we'll let it slide. If it's notes, we'll let it slide. Coach Les, I want to know what you've been writing down. The floor is yours, sir.
Well, I was just preparing to speak a little bit more about delegation and micromanagement. And with micromanagement, the one key that I want to make sure people realize is micromanagement stifles creativity and it stifles free will. Therefore, you have to be careful about the micromanagement. Now, I understand there are times and places, depending on your business, where that close management for precision, for exactness, for that control may be necessary. And there's a way to do it. And one of those things brings me back to the point between somebody assisting versus volunteering. As you said before, volunteers, Lisa, just like David said, I give you a lot of acknowledgement. Working with volunteers, sometimes they're there to help and they're part-time. With the organization I was at, they chose to distinguish between volunteer and assist. The people who assist, the idea was that in assisting as a leader, I would train them, and the training they got would be 10 times more than what they gave as in their assisting. And it was one of those things that I learned very quickly, that if I trained them and I gave them nuggets of wisdom and I poured into them, I would never have to worry about finding people to assist me in leading my programs, ever. And people were always saying, there's a shortage. Oh, it's really hard to find people. And I'd be like, no, it's not. People love it when we deliver what we say we're going to deliver. And I think that to me is the magic. If I could go to every organization that hires volunteers and said, let's shift the context. Let's create it so that they begin, like Lisa was saying, they've never had problems finding leaders that love their values and what they do out in the world with the waste of food. That's so powerful because you're enrolling them in what is so important. And then the work they do is just kind of a side thing. They're there to support knowing what they're doing is featuring a bigger goal. And thank you for this opportunity, Mo and Dr. Natalie and David. Thanks for having me here. And it was great to meet you, Ajit, and also you, Lisa. Thank you for the mission that both of you were up to. It was really a pleasure.
Well, Coach, I appreciate the work that you're doing, creating integrity-centered leaders. I think that integrity is the most important distinction. And integrity also happens to be something commonly misunderstood. And my definition of integrity is a derivative of Buckminster Fuller. And anyone that wants to know what integrity really means, if you're watching this, go to Google, type Buckminster Fuller on integrity, and read what the true definition of integrity is. And with that, we want to give the floor to a gentleman who definitely has integrity, and that's Mr. David Fagan. And we're going to give him the floor to close us out. You are our keynote speaker of the week, David. So all the pressure is on you to close us out. The floor is yours.
Yeah, you mentioned somebody that we could all learn a lot from, Buckminster Fuller. One of the people that I've learned a lot from is John Maxwell. He's written some amazing books on leadership. The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, the 17 Laws of Teamwork. That's a personal favorite that I use within my own team. There's even a workbook, edition. One of my favorite things in these books is, he really breaks down what it looks like and feels like, and just so many pearls of wisdom that could come from there. But maybe a good thing to sort of end with is what John Maxwell calls the 5 levels of leadership. and this has kind of always stuck with me. The first level is a position leader, meaning you lead from a title. Okay, you're the manager. Listen to me, follow me, do what I say because I'm the manager, right? And so they're leading from a title. Not a real effective way to go. Second way up from that is really more of a likable leader, right? You know, I'm going to be really nice to you. I'm going to be really complimentary to you. I may not be the most effective leader, but you like me and you think I'm a nice guy or a nice gal, and so you listen to me. You know, that's better than the first one, but still not too much better. The third level is where things start to get a little bit more impressive, and that's really more of a production leader. It's a leader of addition. You know, you go out and you get a ton of results. And because you get a ton of results in whatever your industry is in, you know, maybe you're a real estate agent that sells lots of houses. You know, maybe you're an insurance person who writes lots of policies. You know, right? Maybe you run a charity that raises and you raise a lot of money. So because you get those results, people follow you because of addition. One level up from that is really more of a leader of multiplication, meaning that leader isn't going out and getting 10 new accounts or 10 new clients. They're developing 10 other people that can each get 10 new accounts or 10 new clients, or they're developing people that are solving 10 major problems. So they kind of become this leader of multiplication. And that's kind of what we really want to get to. And the leader of addition and leader of multiplication are good places to be, and it's within your control. And the highest level of leadership, according to John Maxwell, is what's really called a legacy leader. And this is something you really can't do for yourself. This is what happens even after you pass away. Okay, this means after you're gone and there's nothing else that you can do for your cause, people choose to follow you. They choose to follow the way you live. They choose to follow your words. They choose to follow your example just because of the oppressive things that you did, you know, while you were on the face of this planet, like Buckminster Fuller, right? Here we are, Buckminster Fuller, you know, some of these other people that are out there, you know, and I can name a bunch of different people, Mother Teresa, Princess Diana, maybe some would say Ronald Reagan, maybe some would say JFK, some might say Buddha, some might say Jesus Christ. These people are gone. There's nothing that they can do as a leader anymore. Yet all these people choose to follow them because of the amazing lives that they lived. And so, you know, think about that. You know, do you hide behind a title? You know, when people come to work for you, are you trying to get them to follow you just because you're the owner, you're the manager, so this is why you follow me? I mean, I guess that's okay. It's a little weak. Are you trying to be everyone's friend? Are you trying to be the Michael Scott, right? The Michael Scott of the office in your own company? You're trying to be, you want everyone to like you and get along with you, and you try to do these, orchestrate these different things to keep everybody on your good side. A little bit of that's okay as well. Or do you lead by example and go out and get results? And even better, do you know how to clone yourself, right? And be that leader of multiplication. I think we all want to be that leader of multiplication. I think we all want to leave a legacy. And I think that we could learn a lot from John Maxwell. I think we can learn a lot from Mo and the doctor here. I mean, all of you guys are great. So I'm honored to be on here with you today. And I hope you don't mind, Mo, that my last words were John Maxwell's words, because they're awfully good ones.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. David Fagan. We appreciate you, sir. Thank you for the work that you do to help so many people. David Fagan has helped so many people, and he's always a giver. And you know, if you want a great attribute to pick up on, you could take the David Fagan attribute, which is give first. And David always gives first, and I respect that about him. And with that, I want to just do a quick housekeeping note before we wrap up. I want to thank all of the folks in the virtual auditorium and all of our lovely guests here. True leaders that are actually making a difference in the world, not talking about it. This is not a philosophy show. This is a leadership show. If you want philosophy 101, go listen to some philosophers and they'll talk. I don't care about that. I want people that are doing stuff. I want people that are making things happen. You know, there's the statue of the thinker that we've all seen before. The guy, you know, the thinking statue. I have a statue as well. I bought it for 99 cents. It's a mug. It's a coaster, because it's the doer. The doer isn't sitting around doing this. He's off running somewhere. Okay. So the only statue I have is a little a little circle, because the guy's running, the guy's building businesses, the guy's helping, the guy's, you know, donating food to food finders. So we encourage you to do stuff. Stop talking and start walking. And with that, quick housekeeping note, of course, we do have the women's event, which Dr. Natalie Forrest is executive producing. We've been having people from all over the world send us this. If you are one of the folks watching us on your smart TV device, we now have over 50 million people that have access to all of our programming without a Roku device. If you just have a smart TV that has the Roku software installed, you can now download our channel and watch all of our programming. So we want to thank all of the people that have been downloading our channel, sending us this. Feel free to send us more of these clips so we can play them on the air. And we want to thank the wonderful people at Roku TV for their lovely partnership. And with that, Dr. Natalie Forrest, closing thoughts before we wrap up. You're on mute. You're on mute.
That's because I'm not a control freak.
Good.
But David Fagan had the last word. He put it perfectly. I have nothing else to add.
Okay, there you go.
Okay.
I'm going to relinquish control to David Fagan.
There you go.
tonight.
And now we know that you're a delegator and not a micromanager. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you all. God bless. And the best is yet to come. We'll see you next week.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you.